here in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here, we is stoned. Immaculate.
Hello and welcome. This is the C86 show. I'm David Eastaugh. As you know, we love a special guest. This week it's going to be the turn of the guitarist Peter Greenberg, who I spoke to very recently to find out more about life, love, poetry, and all that other groovy stuff. Has been in lots of bands over his 50 years really, including Barrence Whitfield and the Savages, and also DMZ, and is also part of a new interesting musical combo called STARR and the CZARS, which is going to be available very soon. This is 2025, just in case you're listening to it some other year. But anyway, you'll find out more about all that and much, much more. So after several minutes of interesting but casual chat, we get down to the exciting subject of the early formative years. Peter, it's over to you.
Well, I was born in 1956, and so I'm a bit older than you. And I started to learn how to play guitar when I was like around 12. But one of my older brother of one of my guitar partners took Paul and I to see the MC5 in 1970. It was probably 1970. In Salem, Massachusetts, and it kind of blew my mind. And it changed my life, and that was kind of stage one of just being in love with that kind of stuff.
Yes, absolutely. What year was that you saw him or them?
1970.
Right, my God, that was quite the awakening, wasn't it? So you were 14 at the time.
Yeah, it was the full MC5 treatment. The political rally and Ramblin' Rose kicked off the set, and it was so loud my bones were rattling. And from then on, it was MC5, then the Stooges, then the Flaming Groovies, along with Howlin' Wolf and all the blues guys, because I was always into that.
My God, that was quite the moment, actually. Yes, there's always
it's all the same to me.
Yes, well, so I suppose early garage rock punk, really, wasn't it, at that time? And whereabouts did you grow up? Where was your sort of city or town that you sort of brought it up and lived in?
Well, I was born around the Boston suburbs, but my family, when I was 16 or 15, moved out to Cincinnati, Ohio. So grew up on the North Shore of Boston, but ended up in Cincinnati, finishing high school there. And so I've been back and forth over the years between, Boston, Ohio, and then eventually when I took a 25-year sabbatical from music. So, and I lived in a lot of other places too. So I was in Texas and New Mexico for a long time, but and then came back to music in 2010.
Yes. Well, there's it's interesting. I did an interview with a guy who was a jazz saxophonist. He loved his free jazz, and he was, in various bands during the 80s, and had worked all through the. He was born 1949, so actually he did a lot of music in the 60s and 70s, had that moment in the 80s with various bands, and then sort of got rid of all his possessions, musical instruments, and bought a boat with his wife and sailed around and didn't do anything musical for 10 years. So it does happen, doesn't it?
Yeah, I did it for 25 years. But the good thing was I was kind of like frozen in ice. So I came back into into music, playing the guitar the same exact way I did when I left, because I didn't play for 25 years. And we did 5 albums with Barrence in the reunion stage that started in 2010.
Right, my God, that was quite a break. But then during the 70s, then, sort of when you were 16, it was probably about 72. My maths is working in overdrive here. Did you leave school? Did you go to college at that stage?
Yeah, I was always going to college. I got a graduate degree while in the first iteration of Barrence. So I was kind of always kind of hedging my bets against being a full-time musician. So
Yes. So after that amazing lineup of the MC5 and the Flaming Groovies, what was your next kind of musical direction? Because obviously I mentioned that mine was that glam rock world, but then sort of I mean, I was very young at the time, but that was all very exciting. And then obviously I had an older brother who was 7 years older, and he was into prog rock, and I used to sneak into his room to listen to these amazing records by Yes and Genesis and Wishbone Ash. I know, lucky me. But yes,
I did like the first Wishbone Ash album, but yeah, I was mostly into the more kind of heavy duty stuff. And, um, you know, I basically moved up to Boston to go to college in 1975, and that's where we formed the band DMZ. And that was, I did that from 75 to, after our first Sire album came out in spring of 78, and then I kind of split town and said goodbye, and went back to Ohio, and finished my undergraduate degree, and started a band there.
yes.
Pay for food.
Because you got your first single out in 77, wasn't it? Lift Up Your Hood, which was on Bop Bop Records at that time, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was a 76 Live at the Rat album that we were on when we first got going. And then we did a Bomp EP with 4 songs on it, which led to our Sire Records contract. And then there was a Bomp album that came out with a bunch of unrecorded, unreleased stuff a couple of years later.
Yes, because a few years ago, so when you mentioned the Boston scene, I did an interview with this photographer called Michael Greco, who did this one, about the new wave kind of punk scene in Boston at that time, the late 70s and 80s. So was Boston quite the place to see up and coming bands at that point?
Yeah, Boston was the best. I mean, it was great back then because it was still a cheap place to live, and there were lots of clubs, and there were 100,000 students in town, and kids at that time liked rock and roll. And so, DMZ was, I mean, we started like packing clubs immediately when we started playing, and we had there were a few other bands that we loved to do shows with, like the Real Kids, who are our kind of partners at a lot of shows, and we played between Boston and New York constantly for two years or so. We did a million shows with the Ramones back then. We played with Suicide. Played with a lot of English. Like I think we played with the Damned on their first show in the U.S. For
Right.
instance.
My God, that
Yeah.
must have been amazing. Yeah, well, he was telling me that often people went to Boston, the photographer this is, before doing New York as a sort of get a bit acclimatized after
Yeah, it's a
the
little closer.
a little bit closer, and then just to make sure they've got their chops ready. And did you ever play with is it the Human Sexual Response Band?
Yeah, I don't know if we ever did any shows with them, but I knew like Rich Gilbert pretty good. He's a great guitar player, and they were around. I mean, they were more artsy, and we were more rock and roll.
Yes, absolutely. And how did Sire Records, was there a bit of a bidding war at that stage for your kind of to sign the band up?
I don't think there was a real bidding war. I mean, I think that EP we did on Greg Shaw's Bomp Records was pretty popular, and we played a lot of shows with the Ramones, and so Danny Fields, who was their manager, was was instrumental in getting us signed to Sire.
Yes, my God. Did you ever see that film that they made about Danny Fields?
Yeah,
Kind
that
of,
was a great one.
God, I love that film so much. That's sort of
Yeah.
my winter comfort film, really. I love that. It was so cool. It was so nice. But talking of photographers, you also had Mick Rock do the photography for that particular album.
Yeah, I mean that I must tell you that I mean, I was kind of getting questioning the direction of the band at the time in that first record when that photo session took effect, and when the when I saw the cover, which was kind of this airbrushed 1970s hard rock looking cover, that was kind of the last straw for me, and that's one of the reasons I quit. In addition to the production of the record, but it was. It was a weird photo session. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Particularly, everything about it is very strange. Your art
Yeah, I
direction.
said, okay, if this record is a fiasco, then I'm quitting, and that's what I did.
So yes, my next question is why did the band finish and after one album? So that's it really, isn't it? I know it's a very, it wasn't punky or rocky or new wave. It was just sort of it kind of gives the impression of being a bunch of metal kids, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, some people like it. Right now, we're working with Crypt Records, who are putting out actually the rehearsal tapes that we did with Flo and Eddie, who were the producers of that record before we recorded the album, and that's coming out soon. Um, and But yeah, that record did not sound like us, and we were so young. I was like 19 or something, 20 years old when we got going with that band, and it was we didn't know what we were doing, and it was we were all fighting. It was kind of crazy. So
Yes, I could imagine actually. So that was 77, 78 time. So then as we truck up to the 1980s, what did you do for the last couple of years? Did you say you went back and finished your studies or had that finished by then?
yeah, well, I did. I finished my undergrad at the University of Cincinnati, and I started a band there to buy food. The Customs, which had kind of a regional hit, 45, Long Gone. That and so I did that for a couple of years, finished school, and then moved back to Boston to play with the singer Jeff Connolly in the Lyres, and
Right.
did a bunch of records with them.
Blimey, you were sort of really active at this stage. And after that, sort of, there was that punk, then post-punk period, and then we go into the 80s. Were you still excited about music at that stage? 'Cause I know often doing these interviews that a band or an artist sort of has one moment in a musical, zeitgeist time, kind of sometimes struggle to get enthusiastic about that next wave of music coming along.
I don't know. I seem to always find something to like, and almost every band I've been in has been kind of on the outside of things. I mean, we've always been like a band, been in bands that were sometimes critically popular, but had a fan base, but were always on the outskirts of the central sounds. Like when the whole English kind of punk thing came in, we were always, we don't like all this, safety pin business. We were more meat and potatoes, rock and roll guys. And then later on, we were more 60s garage rock than punk or something. So I don't know. It was hard to classify, but I always found something that was fun to play that inspired me. It was initially it was more stoogey stuff, then it was more garagey stuff, and then it was the garage rock and roll blues stuff that we did with the Savages.
Yes. Did you ever go into the studio with the Lyres? Did you feature on any of their releases?
Yeah, the first EP on Ace of Hearts I played on, and I played on the Help You and 45, which was I guess probably their biggest hit over the years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Were you a committed member of the band, or were you
Oh
just
yeah, yeah, because the singer was the DMZ lead singer, and so I played with him before.
yes, blimey. Did you have a good fan base with that particular
Yeah, we were pretty popular in Boston, and I just it was tough personally, and I mean, he's kind of crazy. Probably shouldn't say it, but he's kind of crazy. So we had a hard time. Everybody's had a hard time getting along with him. He's a genius. He's really a great songwriter and musician, but I did it as long as I could, and I felt like we made some great music, and it was time to do something else I was interested in.
Yes. Was that about 86 you left the Lyres?
No, it's like in '83. That's when we started Barrence Whitfield and the Savages.
Right. So how did you sort of all meet up at this stage? 83.
Well, I was working. I had worked at a record store, Nuggets, in Boston. And I ended up getting fired from Nuggets by the guy that put out the first Barrence Whitfield and the Savages album. And Barrence ended up working there also right after me. And one of my friends at the store told me he could sing. And I was kind of looking to do something that was more like, New Orleans rock and roll, Little Richard, kind of high energy stuff like that. Um, and uh, um, and so I got introduced to Barrence by a friend, and we ended up hitting it off. And just at the time we just said we're just going to rehearse our asses off, get our sound, record our first album, and then we'll start playing out. So we kind of rehearsed from '83 into '84, like 6 months, and figured out all our stuff and recorded an album, and then got going.
Yes, my God. Did you feel with after all those other bands and combos you'd been part of, did you feel this was quite a special lineup and a special kind of outfit that had that sort of potential to sort of take on the world?
Actually, at the time, I mean, I was already in graduate school at the time, and I produced the first, pretty much all the Barrence records I played on. But it was, I thought it was just going to be a way to kind of pay the bills while I was in school, and we were just going to play some club dates and have a good time, and it would be a short-term thing. But it ended up not being that, and um, so we just you know ended up it ended up blowing up pretty fast for some reason.
Yes.
It was kind of during the Roots revival stage, and we just hit it at the right time through just luck.
Well, I suppose most people often say this kind of timing, luck kind of plays a massive part in their kind of musical moment. Some people, they sign to a label, it all feels quite good, but the person who signed them leaves, and then there's a new kind of, I don't know, A&R and manager of the record company, and they just don't get on, and that was the kind of end of that kind of moment, really. Or they begin with a sort of an independent label, and that goes well, and then they get signed to a bigger label, and then they get a big producer, and then they just don't enjoy it, and then they leave that as well. So it's kind of, I suppose it does require the stars to kind of rather line up, doesn't it, and make it all happen, and also get traction with record. Well, DJs basically, don't they? Not record, radio DJs. That's what I'm trying to say. So, when did you start getting some traction in the UK?
Well, probably it was probably early. Well, we started playing shows like in '84, and we got pretty popular quick. We did a lot of New York, Boston, Washington D.C, just East Coast shows mostly. And somehow, and then the guy that fired me, Andy Doherty, he also fired Barrence from the shop. So we kind of both commiserated about that a lot. But anyway, the record came out, this self-produced kind of garage blues rock and roll record, our first album. And Andy Kershaw somehow got a hold of it, and because it sold pretty good for what it was. And so he came over and watched us kind of tear the house down at a couple clubs in Boston, and then came back with a film crew for the Old Grey Whistle Test,
Oh,
and
yes.
filmed us. And you've probably, I don't know if you've seen the video. It's kind of online somewhere, um, where where we did a kind of a show for him with some of our fans at a club in Boston.
Yes, God, that was incredible. Yeah, and Andy Kershaw, because yes, there was John Peel, Andy Kershaw, Janice Long, Kid Jensen. There was some quite good evening shows that were about at that time, which helped new bands get a bit of get highlighted and a bit of traction in the sort of public consciousness, which is all good stuff. So yeah, so when you went to record the second album, is this kind of your own material at this point?
Yeah, more or less. But I was deep into graduate school, and at the time, I was kind of starting to lose interest in the band while we were getting more and more popular. And we got signed to Rounder Records, which was more of a roots label based in Boston, but it was a international label that had good distribution. So we got signed to Rounder. Um, we made an album. I produced it. It was Dig Yourself. Um, it kind of did okay when it came out in late '85, or right around the time Andy's crew filmed us in Boston. But I was also graduating at the time, and I had student loan debt, and I'd been playing for 10 years in lots of bands, and I got married, and I just kind of said, well, if this, I'm gonna quit. And we did our thing. I thought it was going to be just a thing. What we were doing, it was, and so yeah, so I quit, and then Barrence and Andy Doherty, the guy that fired us, Barrence and I, from the record store that put out the first album, he was managing Barrence and us at the time, and they rounded up another crew of Barrence Whitfield and the Savages, because all the guys that we had in the band for the first two albums were myself, Phil Lenker, and Howie Ferguson, who had been in the Lyres with me, and they, I recruited them for the first version of Barrence Whitfield and the Savages, and then Steve LaGrega, a sax player who worked at the record store with us. So anyway, all those, I quit, and then a few months later, the rest of them quit for I don't know what reason, because I wasn't there, and they recruited another team of professional musicians to support Barrence
Right.
that were a little different. We were more garagey and rock and roll, and the next version were more, hit record oriented or something. I don't know what they were. But
Yes.
that was the band that actually toured England, toured Europe in the late '80s, early '90s, while I was slaving away at my job.
So during that kind of, then from that second album, you leave the band at this point and then
Yeah.
go on a different route. So then what happens for the rest of the 80s? Are you just working, keeping the home together and keeping yourself focused on that direction?
Yeah, the '80s, the '90s, and the early 2000s, I was doing what I had to do. Working, I was in the energy business. I had a solar company at the end, and I ended up at some point doing, ended up saying it was time, the kids were grown, time to try to play music again before I'm too old. So in 2010, when Ace Records wanted to reissue our first album, I ended up working with I ended up working with them to um, I added a dozen outtakes and live tracks to it, and it came out in around 2011 or so. And that's when Barrence and I started talking again, and we kind of jointly put together a new band that included Barrence and myself and Phil Lenker, who had been in the Lyres, the first version of Barrence, and then some younger guys who were really talented that we had played with before. We stuck it out really through the next 15 years.
Yes, my God, you were so incredibly focused. So was that the first album that you were talking about that got reissued, or Dig Yourself?
It was the first album, the Mamu album that came out
Right.
on Ace as a CD with 25 tracks.
Nice. We do love a bit of violin, actually. A
It
bit
was
of
good
art.
because it had a fairly extensive booklet with it that had a history of the band and all that, and it was a nice package. Unfortunately, it was on CD, which I don't support CDs, but it was on CD.
Yes. And then from there, you bring out a new album, which is Savage Kings, isn't it?
Yeah,
With
yeah,
the sort of, I suppose this is Mark III of the band, isn't it, at this point?
yeah. I mean, I think through the '90s and early 2000s, Barrence was still going. You know, he still was popular in Europe. He used some backup bands at times. He had and so he kept going. And so we just we put together a real band because I didn't want to do it with you know fill in guys. I wanted to have a really solid band that could put it out, and that's what we did. And we had a great band that did 5 albums that were pretty tight and with good material that wasn't you know it was different than what we had done before, but it still tied back to it, and it people liked it, and it was had energy and life to it, and it wasn't like some shitty guys that do reunion things that they're half dead. It had life to it.
Yes, I know. We've all seen those pictures, haven't we? What was it like sort of picking up your guitar again after that period of, like over 2 decades without playing music? Did it all sort of just fit into place straight away?
Yeah, it kind of did. I mean, initially I did when I was trying to gearing up towards it in the late, like 2008, 9, I did some DMZ reunion shows. I did a tour with the Lyres in like Spain. Um, and then the Ace record kind of kicked us off with Barrence and Phil came out to. I was living in New Mexico, in Taos, New Mexico, and Barrence and Phil came out, and I got a drummer and a sax player, and we did some shows in New Mexico, and we said, hey, this could work. And I remember Barrence and I just got on the phone and called Inigo at Munster Records in Madrid and just said, hey, do you want to put out a record if we put one together? And he said, sure. We negotiated terms and a price, and we went into the studio in Cincinnati where our drummer Andy Jody was living, and where I had lived before. And we had a good friend, John Curley from the Afghan Wigs, who owned a good studio. And we went there and recorded it, and that kind of kicked us off.
Yes, my God, that is brilliant. Did you find, or have you found that there's often a bit of traction with a band that has sometimes a bit of a break, or the passing of time, because often there's that moment where when a band is happening, it's often, yes, you're riding that wave, that sort of current fashion and trend. And then once a band finishes, it's almost like, well, I know with a few people, they weren't prepared to go from like those kind of that progression of venues where you're going sort of like from 100 people to 300 to 5 to a few thousands. Not many people are prepared to go down the other way, playing in front of 100 people again. And then by then they're thinking, look, I can't go in the transit van. That's it. Over for me. But then decades later, they find their old fans, and then there's new people kind of curious about them as well. Did you find there's a curiosity with the Savages, and yes, people wanting to sort of relive that moment, or new people wanting to see the band for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of strange because we did have a history, and people knew the name, and um, we ended up, you know, playing, booking a tour in Europe right after that first record came out, and it ended up doing pretty well. Like, people would show up because they knew about our stuff, because we did have some reissues of the stuff. The records were collectible, and it's not like we were like some English pop band or some this or that, you know, the music was had kind of, because it was like rock and roll, rootsy stuff. So we had rockabilly fans. And because with the way we approached the stuff was so, kind of hardcore, we had a lot of drive and energy to it. So it ended up, instead of a more generic across the board audience that was always wanting to see music like that in the 80s, at this point it was like we had our punk rock fans and we had our rockabilly fans. The rockabilly people thought, oh, these guys are a little too loud and obnoxious, and the punk rock fans kind of liked us when we played really hard and fast. And so we ended up being able to draw from kind of new, new locations, and it
Mm,
ended up just kind of kept moving.
yes, it must have been nice because you went from that, is it Munster Records in Spain to Rounder? Oh no, Bloodshot
Yeah.
Records, which must have been a nice feeling of confidence that somebody was happy to sign you and yes, pay for the bills.
Yeah, we were kind of lucky to get that. It turned out that one of the owners of Bloodshot was had been in college in the 80s, and he had been a big fan of ours back then. Um, and he just Rob Miller, and he just wrote a book actually that's coming out any day now on his history of the music business in his mind. And so but anyway, he after that first record, I ended up paying for us to go record a new album, and which turned out to be "Dig Thy Savage Soul," the first Bloodshot record, and so we had this record recorded and mastered, and my friend Darren at Shake It Records, who had put out the U.S. version of the earlier record. Um, Told me about Rob, and because Bloodshot was a big supplier to his record store at Shake It, and so had this master. I sent it to Rob. I sent it to Third Man Records in Nashville, and Bloodshot came back to us, and they signed us up for a contract. So it was good.
My
We
God,
were
yeah,
lucky.
three albums. This is
Yeah.
very exciting stuff. And then you get Jules Holland as well, which must felt like a very yes, things are going, apart from touring Europe, you also get the traction of being on a major channel as well.
Yeah, well, I think you can thank Barrence for that, because he knew Jules, and when Bloodshot contacted the show after when upon the release of the first Bloodshot album, he remembered Barrence, and he kind of wanted us on there, and it was great because we got to be on there with Tony Joe White, who was a hero of mine, and got to meet him, and the Pixies were on, who were also great, and so it was a real opportunity for us, and so that helped us with shows in England for a while and in Europe, I think.
Was it mostly places like Spain, Germany, Italy that you had the most passionate or loyal fans?
Well, I think Spain's probably the best overall, but our booking agents were always well, not always. We did have an English-based label. Well, there's a whole thing where not label. We had a French agency that was booking us primarily most of the time, but we also had an English agent who was also booking us at times. And it turned out that there was still like the what was the name of the war between France and the UK, like the 100-Year War or something? What was it?
Something like, yes. God, I should know this, shouldn't I? This is going to be so embarrassing. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I think the video froze up, so I'm not sure if I'm still recording or not.
Oh no, I can. Yes, you're still there. There was no hesitation.
Okay, you froze. So anyway, there was a anyway, the UK people won't on the mainland. It's hard to get a venue to talk to the UK booker, and in the UK, it's hard to get a French booker to get the attention of a UK booker. So we ended up, shifting our allegiances between parts of Europe over time. But we ended up playing everywhere.
Well, that's always good. Yes, because that period of you coming, the sort of, for you, the second coming of the band, I mean, you have that kind of classic kind of 5 years, kind of 3 albums sort of period, don't you? It's quite intense time at that stage. Was this kind of all consuming for you? You didn't have any other side hustle going on. It was just playing in the band, touring, recording.
Yeah, that was kind of it. It was a lot of fun too. I mean, I actually never got to do it when I was a kid, so it was great to be able to do it as an adult. And it was we just cranked out a lot of music. We did the best we could, and it was kind of funny because when you I mean, I was grown up, and I just said, I'm just going to do what I want, or we just said we're going to do what we want. We're going to make the music we really want to do. We're going to do it the way we think it should sound, and if people like it, fine, and if they don't. Whereas when you're a kid, you're kind of all worried about, oh, what are people going to think? We didn't give a shit, So,
yes, it's
and it was fun. I think we made some good records. I mean, they got good reviews everywhere. People liked them, and we can play over there whenever we want, and do well. And Barrence is still, we're not always touring together these days, but whenever we do, we do well, and he does well on his own too.
So once you did your kind of the third album on Bloodshot, which was Soul Flowers of Titan, did you tour that album at all? Was that one that you after
we did a little bit, and we did some European tours. We're slowing down touring in the U.S. because it's really difficult here. And then in 2019, I actually crashed skiing and broke my shoulder, and I was kind of out of commission for a year, or at least 6 to 9 months. And I had all these screws in my shoulder, and I couldn't move my arm well enough. And then COVID hit soon thereafter, and so we had kind of a few years there where things slowed down.
Yes, quite drastically, actually.
Yeah.
And then sort of the last 5 years, you've got a new album, which it came out 2 years ago, didn't you? Glory, which was recorded with you've had quite a consistent lineup, haven't you, with the band?
Yeah, we have. Well, Phil, Barry, and I are the old guys, and our drummer and sax player, the young guys, were in their 20s when we started playing with them in 2010, and now they're in their 40s. But Tom's still with us. Andy Jody, our drummer, who is a really fantastic musician, is kind of I think he's called it a day. Yeah, we've had the same 5 guys for a long time. We did the album. Okay, backing up. Bloodshot kind of imploded as a label and got sold in right around 2020, and so it might have been 2018 and 19. Soon thereafter, Soul Flowers of Titan. And so they were gone as a label. So we didn't have a label at the time. We weren't touring that much. And then we had the health issues and COVID. So we ended up just saying, okay, well, we're not done yet. So we did an album with Folk Records in Spain, who folk means friends of, what is it?
Oh, Friends of Los
Los Chicos.
Chicos.
Friends of Los Chicos. And so, and Los Chicos were always great guys, really good friends of ours whenever we played in Spain. And they wanted to do an album with us. And so we, at the end of a long tour in Europe, we recorded that album as a kind of one-off.
Yes. God, I have to say, since you're, the kind of second coming of the classic lineup, your album covers have got certainly better, haven't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just, thought that was, yes, so that was 2025, 23. So, but then, so the band is still together, but at the moment, have you got any plans or dates or recordings lined up, or is it just a case of waiting?
Well, I think at this, I'm not sure if we're going to record any more albums. I mean, we've done a lot. We didn't ever expect to do as much as we did when we started playing again in 2010. And if we didn't approach the music the way we did in 2010, we wouldn't have ever done 5 albums, because I think we approached it like we were doing new music and we didn't try to do it the way we did it before. And so we did it with a new sense of energy, probably a new sense of the style of the songs, and our recording approach was different. So it sounded kind of fresh, but I don't know if we can keep being fresh over and over again. And at some point, it's time to say it's over, And so, we're playing show. We did a show in the spring for a really good friend of ours who passed away. We're playing on we're playing on a Little Stevens cruise in the Caribbean.
Oh, nice.
In the spring, that Barrence and I are going to DJ on the boat, and it'll be kind of fun to do. But, I don't want to make any bad records. And at some point, you're going to repeat yourself, and it's going to be boring. And so at some point, you got to say, it's enough. And I don't know if we already reached it's enough before or not, but I think we probably, if we didn't, it's time now to say it's enough. Barrence might do some more stuff on his own. Well, we might do some more shows if they seem attractive. In the meantime, I moved from New Mexico, where I lived for 15 years, to Washington, D.C., where I had worked during my in ice stage. And so I'm playing with guys locally here for fun. I'm almost 70 years old. So, at some point you just can't, you can't keep doing it, or you'll be ashamed if you did try to keep doing it. And so one way or the other, you need to kind of say, it's time to do something else.
So when you were in New Mexico, Taos, was that when you were doing your solar energy business?
Yeah, I was a partner in a solar energy business that we built a bunch of large projects out in the West. And that actually led to allowing me to be a musician again. So
there you go. No, the only time we ever go to America, which is occasionally, it's always those states like New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, which I really love. I just love those desert landscapes. Yeah. So, yes, got very fond memories of those places. And it's a beautiful area, isn't it? You must have enjoyed living there for 25 years.
Yeah, I really did. We're going We've got a road trip planned to fly into Albuquerque in a couple weeks, and my wife and I, Melissa, and go to eat some green chili, and then drive to El Paso into Marfa, Texas, and hang out there for a couple weeks, and where you can still get some sun in the wintertime and do some hiking. So
Yes.
it's really gorgeous out there and kind of unspoiled in some locations. And it's kind of, you get a sense of freedom.
God, so much. I know that's, well, I think yes, the first ever time we sort of, yeah, we went to Albuquerque, but we often fly into Vegas, get a car, and then sort of do a road trip around things like the Joshua Tree, or there was White Sands as well, isn't there? That's an amazing place. Yeah, I know. We fell in love with it. We just thought, God, this is it, because it's not like anything in England. It's like so different, and as you said, a lot of sun. But look, enough about our experiences. What you've got a new album though, which I've been listening to a lot. So this is a project, just in case you were getting bored, you thought, let's do a new album, which is going to be released in November 2025. So when did this start getting, formulated?
Well, during COVID, we moved to D.C. Our son lives in Brookline. We just said, hey, let's go back to the East Coast. It's closer to the Savages. It was closer to our son and friends. So we moved back here, and I got recruited by these guys that were playing as JAKE STARR was the singer. He had a band called Adam West in the 90s and early 2000s, and Sean Crowley, who's had a really cool band, the Hall Monitors, who opened up for us in New York, the Barrence Whitfield and the Savages, in our last show in New York City, actually. But so they recruited me, and I recruited my friend Mike Lewis from high school in Cincinnati, who had been DMZ's first bass player, and we ended up working up an album for fun and recording it, and we kind of pitched it around to a few labels, and it's going to come out in Spain and Portugal next month, and we're hoping to kind of do some playing over in Europe next year if we can. And it's just fun to keep making music somehow. You can't quit. And this is just very different than what I've done in the last 10 years. So it's fun to play a different style of music and kind of just do something fun and interesting.
Yes, the production on it is amazing. Actually, I just, especially the song that I really loved, I'll have to say, is the second track on side one, Deborah Devine. Yes, the drumming and the sort of sound of that is stunning. With that, how did you sort of bring songs together? Did you sort of all pitch in? Did one or two members do the creative bit and everyone else added their little bits later?
Well, I think there's 12 songs on that record, and 11 are originals. There's one song, one cover is what is the name of it? Every Minute of Every Day by the Primitives, freak beat band from the UK. But Sean Crowley kind of writes most of the songs with input from Jake on lyrics, and I contributed a couple songs, Dream of June and Lickin' the Frog, which is kind of a New Mexico song. So it's we kind of worked up the set, having fun and just rehearsing and fooling around over the last year or so, and decided to record it and see if anyone wanted to put it out. So it's kind of fun to do.
Yes, there was kind of hints of the Kinks and various 60s.
Yeah, that song's good. A little Kinksy thing going on there.
Yes, but it was, I was just like, God, the drumming on this is incredible, and just that the power and then energy. What studio did you use for the recording?
It's just a small kind of crappy, well, not crappy, but I shouldn't say crappy. A small inexpensive studio in Washington D.C. and in an alley, in near Capitol Hill.
Right. Well, it does. I mean, you must be pleased with the sound of it, because that's the one thing that, it was like, God, this is really bright and sort of fast and sort of, yeah, it was very, yeah, amazing. I just thought it had a lot of energy, and it had a kind of a lovely kind of sonic quality to it. And I thought, God, this is a really interesting album.
Well, the funny thing about it is, some people won't like it because it's kind of bright and clear, and it's hard to pigeonhole what it sounds like, which is what I like about it. It's got a little bit of it's got a little bit of Who and Freak beat in there, and then it's got some bluesy stuff in there, and it's clean and clear. Sean and I play. Sean plays like a Silvertone Dan Electro style, clear, clean tone, and I have kind of the dirty tone, and we've been able to come up with a sound that I think is not really um, easy to define, which is kind of what it's all about.
Yes, well, that's fantastic. So that's coming out, and then hopefully some dates next year. Did you say, because reading it, was this a kind of a three label collaboration between different? Yes, it says on your press release, this is
Yeah,
part of
it's like, well, it's not a large label distribution thing. So it's the three labels got together and decided they were gonna make it available together to get it as good distribution as again. So it's Chapuda in Portugal is the lead, and Ghost Highway and uh, Kick Out the Jams in Spain are putting it out. So the three of them are working together. I don't know what they're doing, but they're pressing it up, and we'll be distributing it.
fantastic. And is that going to be? It's on Bandcamp, or will be. And then is it CDs and vinyl, or just CDs?
I think it's going to be just vinyl and
Oh, just
digital.
vinyl. Blimey,
Yeah.
that's a good combination, isn't it, really? God,
Yeah, I don't.
you must be really pleased that hitting 70, making a new album with a completely new lineup of people. Well, not completely, because two members, but generally quite new.
Well, I'll tell you, I shouldn't probably say this. They might, but these are the most organized, normal people I've ever played with, because I've been played with all, and not that Barrence isn't normal, because he's kind of normal in the Barrence way, but most of the people I've played with over the last 50 years are kind of insane. And these guys are all normal. Like one guy's a director at the Library of Congress, another guy's a lawyer for a trademark attorney. So they're all kind of have their shit together, and we communicate like electronically to schedule our rehearsals. So it's kind of like, you know, I don't know. It's something I was never
No,
involved.
I could not imagine that in the 70s, having your shared electronic calendars all synced up and everybody being on time. So this must be a relief.
Yeah, it's definitely makes it easier for me.
I suppose it's more
But I'm
encouraging.
glad you like the record because
No, it was really, I'm so pleased that you just put that link in so I could listen to it, because, like I said, it was quite fascinating. And I heard the first track, I thought, oh, this is good, and then the second track, I thought, God, this is really good. When you listen to something new, it's sometimes a bit like you have to listen to it, but immediately wanted to hear that track. I sort of hit rewind and thought, God, I must hear that again. And it just jumped out. It was, and then the rest of the album was just a delight to listen to. So I thought, oh, you must be really chuffed with this.
well, yeah, I mean, I'm always racked with self-doubt, but I think it's a good record. It was great fun to play. It's got a million different influences and it's all over the place, so it's interesting. So that's
Yes.
what I like about it.
So have you, as a lineup, done any live dates so far?
Yeah, we played a couple weeks ago with a Danish band, the Corettes, in D.C. We played at uh, Comet Ping Comet Ping Pong, which is the club which notoriously was supposedly the place where Hillary Clinton was eating babies, but it didn't, in the basement. But it didn't happen because there's no basement,
There's no,
and anyway, she
yes.
didn't eat babies.
No.
But anyway, we played there a couple weeks ago, and we're planning some more shows, soon, once the record comes out.
Yes, God, that could be quite a marketing and pitch, couldn't it, really?
Yeah, you'll have to edit that part of my conversation out. I don't know
Yeah.
if you knew about that whole story, but
No, but I did sort of, there was somebody, I think it was in the editor of Private Eye went to this place to find the basement, and the owner was a bit like, well, we don't have one, so it would be very hard to
yeah,
yes, so.
it's actually a good rock venue.
Oh, I did feel for the owner though, because he did look like, my God, this has not been good for my health and life. So it's a crazy time anyway. So really, next, this is coming out November this year, 2025. Then you got Little Stevie's Cruise Experience. Is that just DJing, or is the band going to be playing, did you say?
No, we have to do 3 sets, and then Barrence and I will DJ probably some Soul 45s.
Nice. And then hopefully you'll be in Europe with this lineup, doing a few live dates and festivals.
Yeah, we're talking to some people now, but it's hard with a new band because nobody's heard of us yet, and so we need to get the record out and get it reviewed a little bit, and then we can book some shows.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. Well, look, thank you ever so much for this, Peter. It's been amazing to hear the story. And yes, like I said, the 25 years that is quite a record. Like I said,
Frozen
yes,
in ice.
frozen in ice, and you just came back and it was done. That sounds like
Yeah,
one of those bands, isn't it, from the 80s, really, Frozen. Yeah. Anyway, look, thank you again for your time and sending the link through. And yes, the press release, that was really handy, actually. So yes, I was excited.
thanks for having me, and appreciate it. It was good talking to you.
Yes. Have a lovely evening. I'm going to go to bed. Okay. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye.
And on that emotional end, we have to call it a day. A massive thank you to Peter for giving me the time for that. That's Peter Greenberg, rock guitarist from Cincinnati and also Boston and various other places. This has been the C86 show, David Eastaugh. If you want to contact me, you can just search on those social media platform sites, just do C86 show and my name. All these interviews have been archived on Spotify, iTunes, Podbean, True. Have a great week. Stay safe.